Hello. I'm going to talk about the football club called Millwall. For those of you outside Britain, you might not know that Millwall has a bad reputation. It's the bad boy of British football, especially in the 70s and 80s. It was famous for football hooliganism and racial insults. I believe that Millwall fans did nasty things like, I don't know what, throwing bananas at black players and that sort of thing. Well, that was a previous generation. Millwall has definitely cleaned up its act, but the fact is that the people who support Millwall are still working class people, not necessarily all white, by the way, but they're definitely working class and not intellectuals. And for this, they cannot be forgiven. Look, I believe that the Guardian, for instance, the Guardian newspaper, was started by a slave trader. Nobody remembers that now. Nobody remembers that the Guardian newspaper actually supported the slave trade once upon a time. I don't know why some things can be forgiven and others can't. Millwall did have a bad reputation, and newspapers like the Guardian cannot let them get out of that reputation, will not forgive them for it. So whatever they do will always be seen through that filtering light. So anyway, what happened was last week, you see here it's December the 6th, and I have been watching the situation with increasing despair ever since it started. There was a football match between Millwall and Derby County. And this is how it's reported. Fans at Millwall boo players taking a knee on return to stadium. Now, I want to start off with this. Taking a knee. What's this taking a knee? Everybody's using that expression. Are you thinking what it is? What it is kneeling. That's what it is. It is kneeling. Why this taking a knee? They are kneeling. And you kneel to abase yourself. They are abasing themselves. I don't know why. It's supposed to be respect for the Marxist political organisation, Black Lives Matter, or in memory of that drug addict and violent man and porn actor, George Floyd. Now, I'm not saying George Floyd deserved to die, but the fact is he was dying when the police caught up with him. He was so full of a cocktail of drugs, it was very likely that he would have been dead by the end of the day anyway. So this taking a knee, and everybody uses it, and it's total nonsense. It's not only an abasement of a group of human beings, but it is an abasement of the language. And you all know how I feel about people doing violence to my beautiful, expressive and descriptive English language. Okay, so when they returned to the stadium, the first thing these players did was kneel, and Millwall fans booed. Right, let's see the next thing. Unacceptable in TalkSport, it says here. Unacceptable. Millwall fans boo. How terrible. As players take the knee. Take the knee again. Kneel down. They didn't take the knee, they kneeled. They knelt before Derby Clash, leaving TalkSport hosts stunned and drawing condemnation from the FA Football Association and EFL. Do you know what? I don't know what the EFL is. Somebody tell me in the comments. I don't care who the condemnation was from. That doesn't make it right to condemn them. And the Millwall fans, what were they doing? They were booing. Were they throwing things? No. Were they beating people up? No. Were they causing a disturbance? Were they invading the pitch? No and no. They were booing. You know what that's called? It's called freedom of speech. And that is unacceptable. All right, next article. Why did Millwall fans boo as players took a knee? As players knelt down. Ian Herbert in the Daily Mail. Football is full of black pioneers and their dignity shames the cretins who booed at Millwall. They weren't cretins. They were people, I suppose largely men, but it doesn't matter. Oh, go away. They were people who objected to their players abasing themselves in support of a vile political movement. Yeah, football's full of black pioneers. That has nothing to do with these guys kneeling. Right, next one. Oh, here. Millwall finally condemned their own fans for booing players as they took the knee. They didn't take the knee. They knelt down. They abased themselves in support of Black Lives Matter, which is a political organisation. Whew. And people are questioning why the club had not responded earlier. What the club should have said was, our fans are allowed to boo. That is freedom of speech. Next one. And then FA. What date is this? So that was the 6th. This is the 7th. It took them a day. The Football Association launched an investigation into events at Millwall and Colchester, where fans booed players taking a knee, abasing themselves, and then the police became involved. Now, one of the reasons why this video is delayed is because I rang up a friend of mine who was in the police, and I had to, because I wanted to discuss it with her. Why did the police become involved in something like this? And she told me that what I asked her was this: is there a diversity officer whose job depends on finding instances of racism? And she said, well, in the metropolitan districts, probably yes. And the other thing is that all it would take would be for 1 or 2 people to make an official complaint, and then the police have to become involved. They can't just ignore it. The police confirm they will meet with Kick It Out, which is an organisation which has validity. It was an attempt to stop racism in football and other sports as well, I suppose, to discuss potential action. So the people who booed are now, under police investigation. Next one. Oh, this is the 7th, a bit later. Millwall and Colchester set to escape punishment from FA after fans booed players abasing themselves before their games, with uncertainty over whether incidents meet the threshold for racism. Okay, so it is racist to object to the football team you support by paying through the nose, I might say, for your tickets. You are now racist if you object to them abasing themselves before a game. You go there for a game of football, not a political statement. It says here, some fans claim the booing was not racially motivated. It wasn't. Why should it be racially motivated? You saw the photographs. There were white as well as black kneeling there, abasing themselves there. The booing was not racially motivated, but in opposition to the Black Lives Matter political movement. Yeah, and that's what it is. All right, next. Watford captain Troy Deeney vows to walk off the pitch with his teammates if Millwall fans racially abuse players during championship clash. Whether this has nothing to do with racial abuse, he's just jumping on the bandwagon. And then again, after groups of supporters booed Stars as they abased themselves. Next. Here, Martin Samuel. Abasing yourself has never felt more vital. Let them boo. Yes, let them boo. And take notice of what they're saying. That is their way of saying they object to their players whom they support abasing themselves in honour of a political movement before a football match. Right? Wayne Rooney, a footballer, blast, disgraceful and mindless behaviour. It was not mindless. Of Millwall fans who booed their own, have you noticed how they're using the capital letter here? This is something terrible. They booed their own players for abasing themselves. I've got to duck down because my phone is in the way. Okay, and then here, Millwall dismayed and saddened by fans. This is on the 6th. By fans booing players abasing themselves. Millwall club statement. What should have been a positive and exciting occasion was completely overshadowed... It should have been a positive and exciting occasion. It was the first match they were doing. And it was completely overshadowed, not by the fans booing, but by the players abasing themselves. Now, I'm going to go back to an article in the Guardian, Opinion, and this is by Emi Onuora. Those who booed the race equality it wasn't a race equality protest. I'm supposing this is a man. I don't know this name at all. Onuora. Mr. Onuora. Excuse me if I got that wrong. Those who booed the race equality protest should not be pandered to, especially since the club have such a history of bigotry. Oh, you have to bring that up. Well, what about the paper that you're using to put out your opinions, Mr. Onuora, with its history of slave ownership? In researching my book about the history of racism in football, a question I asked every player I spoke to was, where were the most hostile places for a black profession? In almost all cases, Millwall's ground was on the list. Yeah, were. Not now. And in any case, even if every single Millwall supporter was a racist, and that's, of course, total rubbish, they would still have the right to boo about their players abasing themselves on the football pitch in support of a political movement with which they disagree. The actions of those Millwall fans last weekend who jeered at their own players, yet they were their own players, and that's why they should do it, as they expressed opposition to racial injustice, seemingly represented a massive show of utter contempt and disrespect for the lives, experience and sentiments of Millwall's black football. No, it didn't. And also for those within the club who have worked hard to improve their image since the 1970s and 80s. Yeah, well, they have worked hard, and Millwall's image and behaviour is better. And the people in Millwall are good, solid, working class people who object to a football event being turned into a political statement. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.